So good morning, awesome people. Before I start, I would like to ask a few questions to all of you. All of you who have lost a loved one in life, ever, please raise your hands. All of you who faced a failure, keep your hands raised, please. All of you who have faced a failure in life, raise your hand. All of you who have faced a heartbreak or a trauma. So that's, if you look around, that's pretty much all of you. Why I ask this question is to bring home the point before I start that if you are a living being, you will have a problem, you will undergo adversity. Only dead people don't feel the pain or undergo adversity. You will undergo a myriad of positive and negative emotions, sorrow, anger, happiness, joy. It's normal to undergo emotions. The problem comes when we don't know how to handle them. Today I'll talk about emotional resilience and how to build it with some examples of my life and life of friends I have from whom I have learned some valuable lessons about how to build emotional resilience. I am not a mental health expert. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a military veteran with 2.5 decades of experience in the army. And after that, almost a decade experience in the corporate. I accidentally entered the domain of mental health a few years back. And I would, in hindsight, say it was a happy accident. Now, starting, my thunder was stolen by Sanju. So I will start by quoting somebody whom he has already quoted. And this happens with me often. And you know what? I was the first speaker. I requested him to be the first speaker. So that's when you back out, that's what happens. So this is something which the greatest basketball player of all time, Michael Jordan, said a few years back. And this is my motivation whenever I fail, and which is very often. If somebody like Michael Jordan says that he succeeded only because he failed over and over again, it should drive a lesson to all of us that failure is the stepping stone of success. It is not just a saying, it's a fact. And I will demonstrate it with few examples. Now, some of you who know military history would recognize this point. This peak there is the point 5770. During the Kargil War in 1999, two of my course-mates, my batchmates from Army, were below this location. The neighboring country's army has occupied this post, and they were asked to capture it back from them. Now, if you see, the post has absolutely no access. It's a 90-degree cliff. And it takes about 10 to 12 hours to climb it at this 90 degrees. So these two young officers, my course-mates, they were asked to capture this on 25th of June 1999. They took 10 people each, and they started climbing using the climbing ropes, and it was a vertical height. It was sub-zero temperature, it was snowing. You can see the snow-clad cliff. It took them 10 hours to reach near the top. And when they reached, it was dark, and they could not see the enemy. It was a tough situation. After 10 hours of climb in this sub-zero temperature, you have reached a place, but you can't find the enemy. They took a bold decision to come back down all the way and try again the next day. The next day morning, they reached back, and when they wanted to climb again, their legs won't work. So they took another bold decision to take a day's rest for the troops and try on 27th June. On 27th June morning, they climbed again, took 9 hours this time, and when they reached the top, they could see the enemy. The post was occupied by enemies with machine guns. these two young officers with their team, they launched a surprise attack because the enemy was just not expecting that anybody will be so stupid to climb from this side of the mountain. They attacked, they killed all 11 enemy soldiers, and as is the trend in the army, when you attack and win a post, the fresh troops are sent to replace you. But this officer, my coastmate, he refused to be replaced. He stayed there because he was expecting a counterattack. Now, a counterattack came, and they repelled the counterattack because this officer was there. He knew the terrain. Now, what lessons can we learn about emotional resilience from this young, brave officer? First of all, he was so emotionally aware that his body is giving up, his troops' body is giving up. First day, he could not locate the enemy, he didn't feel disheartened, he came back. Second day, his body was not ready, his troops' body was not ready. At the peril of being admonished by the superiors, he took a decision and waited one more day. And third day when he went, he not only defeated the enemy, he stayed put there. He had no strength left in him. But he was emotionally so resilient because he knew the importance of that place. So when I met him in 2000, when he was awarded the Sena Medal Gallantry by the President of India, and today the post he captured is called the Navneet Top. So this post in Siachen is named after him. I met him. I said, are you out of your mind? Why did you climb that side, the other two sides? He said the other two sides were relatively easier, but that would have given my position. But I said, with just 10 people, you go in mountains generally, those of you are aware about military, if you're attacking on a top, you need to have at least 3 to 6 times the number of people. And these people are less than the enemy. He said, when the purpose, I knew the purpose became bigger than the problems. That's when he forgot about his body's problem. He forgot about the numbness in his hands and legs because of the sub-zero temperature, and was able to conquer that post. And no wonder, seeing the boldest thing, the government of India named that post on him. In fact, last night I spoke to him, and he repeated the same thing. When the purpose is larger than the problem, your emotional resilience automatically builds. So I want all of you to remember, whenever you are in trouble, whenever you are facing adversity or trauma, remember, if the purpose is larger than the problem, you just go ahead. There's another example of my friend. Now, this is, you would have heard a kind of a country called Haiti. It's in the Caribbean island, south of America. In 2010, one of my army friends, Colonel P.K. Roy, he was deployed with the United Nations, and he had spent just a week there when in this building, he had gone for a meeting. The meeting started at 4 o'clock, and he was to rush to some other meeting at 5 o'clock. So at about 4:45, he excused himself and was trying to get out when an earthquake hit. The earthquake was on a Richter scale 8.0, with the epicenter 25 miles north of this place. And this is how the whole building collapsed. Colonel Roy lost all his colleagues. There were more than 100 people with him. He was the only survivor. Not just that, somehow he came out of the rubble, with all dust around him. When he came out, somebody came and gave a message to him that the complete township is destroyed in the earthquake. Tens of thousands of people died in a matter of few seconds. But this was not the only problem he was going to face. The United Nations asked him that now that we have lost almost everybody, you lead this mission. And he was just 8 days old in that foreign country. He was facing his own trauma of seeing his colleagues dying. He was facing the trauma of overcoming the shock value of the whole thing. At the same time, he was made the in charge of taking care of the UN and also to rehabilitate, rescue, provide relief to the tens of thousands of people there. This young colonel of the Indian Army Again, for him, the purpose became larger than the problem. So he, for the next 1.5 years, worked relentlessly without coming back home. See the condition, this is the condition of the township. This is the capital of Haiti, Port-au-Prince. This gentleman, he led the rescue, relief, rehabilitation, and in 1 year, he saved 4 million people through a single dogged determination. And when I asked him, what made you do this? How could you overcome this adversity? He said, falling down is an accident, but getting up is a choice. He had fallen down, but he got up. And that statement by him also teaches me a lot of lesson because I fall down often. Now, I'll come to the very interesting example. This is an organization called Disha Kiran, which I founded with my friends in 2019. So when I worked in corporate, I was doing very well, and I thought, why don't I run my own show? Why don't I start a company? So in 2019, few of our friends from my college, IIT Delhi, from my army friends, we decided to start this company to help students find the right path. All of us decided we will not take an investment from any investor because we wanted to keep the control and the values which we have for the company. We invested everything, sold our properties, sold our cars, invested in this company, and within 3 months, COVID happened. The lockdown. We lost all the money. Whatever we had went zero. But we had team, we had employees. Every month, we used to borrow money from friends, from banks. A situation came that even to pay salaries to our employees or stipend to our interns, we had to borrow money. And a time came when I had to keep my phone in airplane mode because people would call me asking their money back and I could not return. I had no money left. My team had no money left. And we were down and out. So we were sitting and discussing what to do now, what to do next. Every night I used to sleep thinking tomorrow morning I'll give a call to everyone, we are closing shop. But every morning I used to get up and I used to think, let me try once more because there is too much passion involved and the cause is very good. And in this adversity came an opportunity. During COVID, if all of you remember, especially those teachers and parents, there are a lot of mental health issues being faced by children. So a lot of schools started asking us to provide them mental health support. And my co-founder, Dr. Parul, who is a practicing therapist, she advised that if we have to do this work, then let us do a survey first. Let us find out what is the magnitude of this problem. We did 38 surveys across metropolitan cities, mid-sized cities, small towns. And when we analyzed the surveys, it was shocking. These surveys were basically for school and college going students. When we analyzed it, we realized that almost 23% children going to school and college are facing one or the other kind of mental health issue, which is diagnosable, which is curable. The figure was so alarming that it worried us. And India is a country where 350 million children go to schools and colleges. How do we address this? So we started by organizing the first group of counselors, therapists, and psychiatrists to start providing the mental health services. And when we, after a year, we discussed what is the problem students have. Why suddenly all the children are facing this problem? We realized one major factor, that the emotional resilience of the children has fallen down. And the reason identified by those trained psychologists was that they were either ignoring or suppressing their negative emotions. If a child has lost a relative due to COVID, or if somebody's parents lost a job, those negative emotions were being suppressed or being ignored by these children. And when you suppress or ignore any negative emotion, it will manifest itself eventually into a much dangerous or drastic situation. That's when we started awareness program across various schools and colleges to educate the children that whenever you have an emotion, you must express it, whether it is anger, grief, or joy, or sorrow. Because what we call it emotive ventilation. Unless you ventilate your sad emotion, it will eventually turn into a bigger problem. So whether we are grieving, there is in our Indian society, there is a very good example. In olden times, even now, if some family member dies and the elders come and they see someone is not crying, they force that person to cry. As a kid, I used to find this awkward. Now, I understand that in our culture, there are many such examples. Why we help people to cry is to overcome that negative emotion, to express it. If you don't express, if somebody's father has died and the child is not crying, eventually that inner suppression of emotion may take a shape which is much more dangerous. So, with this example, we must understand that it is important to express the emotion as and when it occurs and not wait. I think something to this effect was also said by my previous speaker. We have of all the learnings of the tens of thousands of counseling sessions, more than 3.5 to 4 million assessments of mental health, if I want to express what I feel about resilience and emotions, the first point I want to convey is we own our emotions don't own us. Never let your emotions own you. The second point is accept your emotions, express it, and share it. Sharing of emotions, when you feel sad, when you feel sorrow, with grief, share it with your near and dear ones. That will help you a lot. And to end, the first point I have said, try and express it. While I'm saying express it, it is with the values. Suppose you're feeling very angry. You must express it, but with the values of life that you learned from your parents and your teachers. Be kind to one another. Say sorry more often, say thank you more often. It will make you feel better. And be empathetic. Life is not digital. Life is, there is no 0 and 1. There's 1.1, there was 2.1, there's 10.2. So be empathetic, understand the other person's perspective, and that will help you to become a better person. I will summarize by saying, in life, we all will undergo failures, we all will undergo problems, have problems, failures, trauma. As far as possible, understand your emotions, accept it, express it, share it, and hopefully you'll not have a major problem. With that, I have finished. Thank you.